things that I've always felt with Legacy is Legacy absolutely punishes you for mistakes.
Yep. So here we go into the semifinals of the Star City Games Open Series here in Indianapolis. It is the Invitational. Open Series happened earlier standard. We'll see the Legacy Open Series tonight, but in the middle, in this wedge, there are $4,000 on the line between Edgar Flores and Jim Davis in this match. On your left, Edgar Flores, rather new to the game, only been playing for about 2 years, already a Star City Games Open grinder, built a unique deck that only he's playing with Dark Confidant, Stoneforge Mystic, Swords of Plowshares, Jace, kind of an Esper Blade deck, all about 2-drops. It's got Bitter Blossom. On the right-hand side, Jim Davis. He is not new to the game. In fact, he is not new to this archetype. He's been playing Goblins since forever, I think, since you could probably play Goblins. And he knows how to play this deck phenomenally.
Turn 1, Jim Davis, Mental Misstep. I believe that hit...
I can't quite see what Mental Misstep hit, but whatever it was
Aether Vial or Goblin Lackey, most likely.
Yeah. Goblin Lackey.
Very important card for Jim Davis.
And that's a big reason why a lot of people said Goblins has lost its luster, because you can misstep a Lackey or a Vial, and that's exactly what happened here with Edgar Flores. We'll see how the rest of the game plays out.
Edgar Flores claims that Force of Will is no good any longer, and that Mental Misstep has dethroned Force of Will as the free counter of choice.
That is some pretty crazy theory, but it's worked well for Edgar so far. Yeah, we had him in earlier, and he said just that. And Force of Will is bad. It's super one.
Jim Davis is playing Mental Misstep, and he doesn't even have a way to play blue.
Yeah, if you were here a little bit ago, I was in utter shock when I saw Jim Davis's deck. 2 Mental Missteps, no way to pay for them, Goblins with Misstep. People said it was ridiculous to suggest such a thing, and here we are.
Aether Vial on turn 2 from Jim Davis. A huge mana engine for Goblins. It resolves.
Yep. And it looks like Edgar has got a Bitter Blossom there, but he's going to opt for Stoneforge Mystic instead, likely grabbing Batterskull. Now, Batterskull is certainly a big problem for Goblins, but you can always incinerate it away.
I actually think that this play is wrong. This matchup is all about... excuse me, all about establishing the board, and putting a Bitter Blossom into play can shortcut you to having creatures in play such that you'll live very long. The Batterskull also can do that, but Jim Davis has answers he can tutor for to take care of it.
I can agree with you about a lot of that. The one big thing to note, however, is that if the game goes too long and Jim Davis starts building up his board, he can incinerate away that Stoneforge Mystic, making Batterskull rough to get into play. So if he plays the Stoneforge Mystic now, he can almost certainly put Batterskull into play next turn, and then doesn't have to worry about getting incinerated.
That's a very good point.
Where Jim Davis, can't incinerate right now, he couldn't incinerate later. Also worth noting, it is important, Jim Davis has a 10th Street Hooligan in his deck.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. He can destroy a Batterskull, whereas he can't destroy a Bitter Blossom.
Well, I mean, he can destroy a Batterskull, theoretically. Now, if Edgar plays in a way that, Batterskull can't get destroyed, then it won't, as long as it keeps 3 mana untapped. But, so it passes, and Edgar's going to be able to vial in Batterskull at the end of Jim Davis's turn.
Edgar lays the 3rd land here, trying to decide between 2 different lands he has.
And, okay, ends up going with Scrubland.
And yeah, you saw the ponderous moment he took there with that land. Legacy is such a skill-intensive format that, in my experience, potentially choosing the wrong land there can be a game-losing proposition. It isn't always, but it absolutely can cascade into small little things that affect the game 3 turns down the line. Edgar leaving that land says go. Jim Davis does nothing at end of turn, and he pumps up the Aether Vial, yet another tick.
Alright, so Vial on 2, and this is not the start Jim Davis wanted to see. Now, Goblins does have a lot of late-game power. You can Ringleader and get these explosive starts out of nowhere. Goblin War Chief, you can dump your whole hand in 1 turn. But I'm sure Davis would have liked to have been able to do something else. Getting that Lackey countered was a big problem.
Skirk Prospector likely to be down on the table, and there it is. This little goblin can turn any goblin into a red mana. All you've got to do is sacrifice it.
Small cost to pay, right?
I mean, if you need a red mana, you need a red mana.
Fair enough.
Edgar sitting pretty here. Batterskull on the table, complete with Germ. Edgar has been offered Germ tokens from his opponents many times today, and he has a particular Germ token of his own crafting, I believe, that he uses instead.
Of his own likeness,
yes,
even. Yes,
there he is.
Edgar Flores, the Germ.
This is me, attacking you.
Ha ha ha. Alright, so... Edgar serves in for 4 with that batter skull. Jim Davis takes it. Edgar Flores gains 4 life. Worth noting is that with the Skirk Prospector on the battlefield, Jim Davis can chump block with any goblin and sacrifice it before damage, and then Edgar will gain no life.
Yep.
Now, at this point in time, obviously doesn't want to do that, but it could easily be relevant a little later in the game.
If we were living in the previous rule set where damage went on the stack, that could even allow him to kill a germ and prevent the life gain. But we do not live in that world any longer.
Right, legacy cards does not equal legacy rules. So it looks like Edgar has a Swords to Plowshares in his hands. I'm not sure what other cards he's holding over there. Let's see what he does. Taps 2. Got a Chromox too. A Bitter Blossom. It's the card he's looking at putting down. And yep, down comes Bitter Blossom.
It's very good for him.
And especially with Batter Skull, he can start shipping the Batter Skull to his flyers.
Yep.
If he wants to, and that'll make it really hard for Jim Davis to interact. So Jim untaps, still no use on that Vial. Now sitting at 3 means he could put a War Chief or a Matron into play. Or an Incinerator, I guess, if that's what
with only 2 mana available, what he can do right now, if he has a Matron, he can kill that Batter Skull right now.
Play Matron.
Play Matron with a Vial, and then with that get a 10th Street Hooligan.
And then Hooligan away.
And Hooligan away the Batter Skull.
That's right. And that'll take care of Jim Davis's nasty Batter Skull problem.
It is actually really hard to play around that play from Jim Davis, because keeping 3 mana open it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Now, of course, this has to resolve. Well, pardon me, not this. The 10th Street Hooligan has to resolve past a Daze, which Edgar potentially could have in his hand. I don't remember if we saw that from him.
I guess he has it, I'm pretty sure. I think I just saw it in his hand.
Now, remember, the Skirk Prospector, though, makes any goblin make a red mana.
Right, so he will probably lose his Matron.
Yeah, the Matron will probably be the one to die.
So the Daze will trade with the Matron. And there's the 10th Street Hooligan by Jim Davis. And is going to tap 2, put it out, target that Batter Skull. And Edgar is probably going to Daze it. Alright, Jim. Pays 2, a red and a green. And here comes 10th Street Hooligan.
I think we're going to see tap out, lay the Daze. It's also possible he could just return. I think both of his lands that are tapped there are both non-islands. That could be wrong, though. We have a Invitational champion standing behind Edgar Flores.
And yeah, he sacrifices the Matron to pay, and Batter Skull goes away.
And there goes the Germ. Goodbye, Germ.
Goodbye, Edgar Flores. All right. Still leaves it within camera view though on the sideline,
yeah.
So we all know what's going on.
In comes a fairy token, 1/1 black flyer.
1/1 black flyer, and we should get some tokens to use there instead of face down cards. It's don't want to think it's a more fun accident or something silly like that.
Edgar Flores, with only 1 Batter Skull in his deck in the main, a 2nd Batter Skull on the board.
Yeah, he said he wanted to run the 2nd one in the main deck, but he couldn't justify it, especially with Dark Confidant.
Right. That seems very legitimate.
Yeah.
The Stoneforge Mystic here, 2nd one, able to search out Sword of Body and Mind. And I don't see an Umezawa's Jite.
Nope, not one in his main deck.
Nor one in his board.
Right.
That's a little bit surprising to me.
Yeah, he narrowed down the cards he really wants to get, and that was apparently not one of them. Interesting.
Now, he only has 2 equipment in his deck, so his 4 Stoneforge Mystics can quickly run out of things to find. However, if he wants to, he can always brainstorm those equipment back into the library to refind.
Sure. Yeah, I guess that's always a possibility, too.
Edgar passes the turn. Jim Davis ratchets up the Aether Vial to a 4. Draws a Goblin Matron. Hand is Pile Driver, Goblin Matron, Goblin Ringleader, I think 2 Incinerators. taps the Aether Vial. There's a ringleader. The red Factor Fiction Goblin ringleader. Edgar putting a pause on things. Okay, the triggered ability. Edgar's about to let resolve. Jim waits to make sure Edgar's ready for it. Here it comes. Okay, and we have a lackey, a war chief, and a war marshal. 3 free cards for Jim Davis. War chief here, deeply frightening. There's 2 ways that Goblins plays when it comes to Legacy. With War Chief in play, or without War Chief in play. And when a War Chief is in play, essentially the Goblins deck becomes able to simultaneously build up incredible amounts of card advantage, but have the mana advantage from a War Chief turn things into just this explosion in cards and effects on the board. And Jim Davis even has a Skirk Prospector, so he can turn things like a Goblin War Marshal into a lot of mana, so that he can almost combo off. Not exactly. He does not have the food chain style versions of Goblins that we saw maybe about 8 years ago, but it's fairly close to a explosion in almost a combo-rific sense. Jim trying to sculpt out this turn. He's got so many cards in his hand. And the ringleader and the 10th Street Hooligan both come in. The ringleader can be killed by a group block, and the 10th Street Hooligan by any block, and either of them will kill one of the creatures in play. Edgar thinks about this a little bit and then offers up a Stoneforge Mystic to trade with the 10th Street Hooligan. They both...
I'm blocking with the one that cast last.
Yes.
Okay, the block finally declared.
So the one that's summoned.
Yeah.
They both die.
Take 2.
Take 2.
I'm in.
After combat. Probably going to see a Mogg War Marshal here. There it is, Mogg War Marshal. And I might, at the end of the turn, Edgar Flores taps, puts the sword into play. Got a Sword of Body in mind. The pro blue primarily as a defense against Jace, and the ability to create the wolf token, just extra value. 2 mana equips the sword. Jim Davis responds. He sacrifices his Mogg War Marshal and one of his tokens to allow himself to cycle and kill, in response, the equipped fairy. That might have been somewhat premature. A block throws away a token, and so we have on table still Goblin Ringleader and Skirk Prospector facing all of this down. That cycling did find Jim Davis a 3rd land in the form of Rishadan Port. Edgar Flores sacrifices a Flooded Strand and gets out a 6th land, and then moves the Sword of Body and Mind onto his fairy token.
Yeah,
His
that sword.
fairy token and Stoneforge Mystic, joined by Sword of Body and Mind and Bitter Blossom on one side. Jim Davis with an Aether Vial at 4, 2 lands in play, and a Ringleader and a Skirk Prospector in play.
Yeah, I mean, Jim Davis's hand looks pretty full right now of just red goblins. Exactly what he needs to find. And takes it up to 5. Uh-oh. Edgar Flores has to be a little concerned right now. At 5, that means we're talking Siege Gang Commander. see if that's what happens. So it looks like Jim's going to play down the port. Makes sense. And just going to tap for mana this game, though. I don't know how much port is actually going to do with its second ability, but third land is still good news for Jim. He's looking at a Goblin War Chief right now. So taps 3. And down comes the War Chief. So now he's going to tap out the Vial. Tap the Vial for a 5. Down comes Siege Gang Commander. And the Scourge Rare, reprinted also in a 10th edition, comes on down. And that puts how many points of power on the board? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 points of power. Plus he's got Skirk Prospector, so he can sacrifice 2 and play a Matron. Okay. Jim Davis also has a Pile Driver in his hand too, so at the end of all this he could put a gigantic Pile Driver out. Oh, he can send another Pile Driver. So now he can crack the Matron and a token, get 2 Pile Drivers. That just shows you Jim Davis's mastery with this deck. He just knows exactly what to go. I mean, maybe a different player would have come up with this play eventually, but Jim immediately knows what to go get. And he puts 2 Pile Drivers out, and I think he's just going to crash with everybody. Those Pile Drivers each get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus 10, plus 0. So Pile Drivers are 11 ones. Those are some big, or 11 twos. Those are some big Pile Drivers. Let's see how Edgar takes this. Oh, so he attacks with everything, pumps the Pile Driver, and then before blockers cycles Jim Palm Incinerator, Jim Davis takes the first game. So despite being stuck on lands a little early, that Aether Vial does all the work Jim Davis needs, and he's able to take it down. Well done by Jim. In the meantime, I want to tell you about SCG mobile app. This app just came out last week. You can find it in the iTunes store for your iPhone, and it is awesome. First of all, it lets you keep track of what's going on in matches. You can keep track of life total, what increments of damage were dealt, keep track of your entire history, keep track of how much time is left in the round. All kinds of customization is available. It's really cool. You can also do things like roll dice. There's all kinds of neat functionality. On the other hand, if you're not playing a game, if you're just on a bus somewhere and like Magic the Gathering, as most of us do, you can just read all the recent Star City Select articles. Premium functionality will probably be on shortly. Right now you can read all the Select articles. And so you can just open it up, check out the most recent articles, favorite them, come back to them later, easily find ones that interest you, and it's pretty awesome. You can just, instead of having to go to Star City's website and navigate to find the article you want, you have to scroll way down on the page and maximize the screen, and then you click on one article and like your thumb's too big, so you accidentally click on the article above it, you have to click back. This way you can just click and read the article in an easy way on the iPhone. So definitely check it out. For only $5, I believe is what it's costed at. It's a steal. So definitely look into it. In the meantime, heading into game 2, Jim Davis up a game. Looking at the sideboards here, I'm looking at what Jim's going to be boarding in. Seems like Pyroblast could be a potential card. Deals with Blue Spells by Edgar Flores. Tin Street Hooligan to kill equipment. That seems like quite clear to bring into me. Croson Grip. He has to kill Batterskull somehow, and Grip seems like a good way to do it. Mental Misstep. Doesn't really do a lot against Edgar Flores' deck. And since Davis has the advantage of knowing Flores' deck list, I don't think he'll bring it in. It just catches Swords to Plowshares and Mental Misstep, and Thoughtseize, but Thoughtseize may be going out. Swords, Misstep, Brainstorm, Thoughtseize. I don't think it's all that impressive. I don't know. Adrian, what do you think? What do you think about sideboarding and Misstep in this matchup?
I don't know that it does very much, honestly. Like, you're talking about a deck that has Thoughtseize as a 1, Swords to Plowshares as a 1, Brainstorm as a 1. I mean, if you want to fight the mental... it might be okay. I mean, you can fight their Mental Missteps with your own, and your ones are pretty powerful.
The thing is, I think the biggest thing is you can catch Swords with it, but Jim wants to be as aggressive as possible in this matchup, I think. I think he just wants to... He can play the long game if he wants to with the Ringleader, but I think he wants to make sure he has a good draw, is able to play some cheap Goblins, and if you have a hand with Mental Misstep, that's one less cheap Goblin you have access to.
Right. I mean... You know, the Pyroblasts are not exciting. He clearly is going to bring in 10 Street Hooligan and Croson Grip. That's 4 cards that are good. 3 of them are not Goblins.
Right. So I mean, you don't want like when John Sani won a Grand Prix with Goblins, Grand Prix Columbus, right?
Right.
John Sani won a Grand Prix with Goblins. He said that the biggest mistake in a post-match interview, he said the biggest mistake people made in their Goblins decks was just not playing with Goblins.
Yeah.
Like, you just want to have as many Goblins as possible, and you don't want Lightning Bolts clogging up your draws. You don't want anything except for Vial, obviously. Vial's insane. But you don't want anything else clogging up your draws. And I feel like in the Goblins deck, if you board in all these non-Goblins cards, you're just going to get these awkward draws. It makes your ringleaders worse. I don't know.
I think you're exactly right, actually. Like, one of the things, or he's exactly right, and you're exactly right to bring it up. Like, one of the things that can happen, and you hear this all the time, it's not just for Goblins, but that if you sideboard too much, you can become a different deck. Now, sometimes that's okay if you can actually functionally do a switcheroo. But you know what? Switcheroos, historically, tend to not work. They can work, but they don't usually work. So if you switch too much around, you can become, in the case of Jim Davis's Goblins deck, you could become not Goblins. I mean, let's pretend that you were to hand the 75 cards Jim Davis had to another player, because I don't think Jim Davis is going to overwhelm himself with non-Goblins. You could hand it to them, and they could sideboard it with the way that his sideboard is built, completely so he stops being a Goblin deck. It's
right.
doable. I mean, there are, it looks to me like there are 13 non-Goblins in Jim Davis's sideboard. Now, the more Goblins you can keep in your list, the better.
Worth noting, Joe Bono points out on Twitter that Edgar had the opportunity to daze Jim Davis's Vial that game, and he chose not to. Now, I didn't remember it was in Edgar's hand at the time, but I think he's right, and we'll see if Edgar makes the same play this time around, but killing Vial is just too important.
Yeah, I think that Edgar was thinking about it like this. Edgar was thinking about it as, you know, I cannot afford to have one less land right now. He's going to get too much tempo on me. And not recognizing the real tempo value.
That's
I mean,
Aether Vial, yeah.
I think that when Aether Vial was printed, it's possible that Edgar Flores was about half of his age right now. That's something, obviously, a little bit of an exaggeration, but
only a little bit,
but
yeah.
not by much.
So Jim Davis with the turn 1 Goblin Lackey.
And we're going to see, I believe, a daze here.
Well, yeah, Edgar is switching, or a sword, something like that.
Or it could be a mental misstep. There's a Underground Sea, so.
So Jim Davis plays turn 1 Goblin Lackey. Edgar Flores brainstorms in response. Okay, so he's looking for an answer. It doesn't necessarily have one.
I think he's going to brainstorm then daze. Just use the mana.
I just saw it. I didn't see the daze in his hand before that, but yeah, he's got the daze. So this game, he'll use his daze and deal with that Lackey. Yeah, the Aether Vial is just one of the best cards in Goblins. If they play it, you should always counter it. You always want to misstep it. You always want to daze it. And I can't believe, thinking back on it now, Joe is right. And I can't believe that Edgar didn't have the opportunity, or didn't choose to, rather, daze that Vial.
I mean, I think he was just, you know, not accustomed to playing against Goblins. It's not a popular deck in Legacy anymore.
It isn't.
It hasn't been a popular deck in Legacy for a while, and then since Mental Misstep was printed, even less popular.
Yep,
I mean, I think it's been popular. It hasn't been popular in at least 2 years or so.
Well, I mean, Goblins was really popular earlier this year. It won back-to-back opens.
I don't remember it being very popular, though. I mean, it can win an open and not have a big portion of the field.
It felt like it was pretty popular
Okay.
from the field. But then things just changed. People started building their decks in different ways.
Yep.
And Goblins just became less powerful.
And now he lets the Lackey resolve. Perhaps he found a useful answer to it. Stoneforge Mystic.
Okay, I guess that's kind of an okay answer.
I mean, there's not much that Jim Davis can do other than Sting Scourger to be able to make use of this turn and stopping the Stoneforge Mystic from...
you get Pyrokinesis out of
There's no... I doubt that Jim Davis brought in Pyrokinesis. I mean, it's possible, I suppose, but 4 damage is what you're splitting. Oh, maybe, though. Because that can take out a whole bunch of Bitter Blossom tokens.
All the tokens, kills Dark Confidant, kills Stoneforge Mystic, can kill a Batterskull straight up.
For 2 cards, it's... it's not 4 matchups like this, generally speaking.
I don't know if he brought it in, but I don't think it's out of the question.
It's not out of the question. That's absolutely.
And if I'm Edgar Flores, like, you just want to lose if he does that, because if he hits you with Lackey, you're going to be really far behind. Now, I don't think Jim Davis has Pyrokinesis in his hand, but the good old 1-2 on the Stoneforge Mystic holding out that Goblin Lackey.
When I see that port, what we have not seen Jim Davis do yet is use port to suppress the mana from the opponent.
Yeah, might as well be a, I don't know, a God's Eye Gate to the Rikai. Is that what that Kung Fu Kamigawa was called?
Nice.
I guess that one's legendary, but, you know. Let's see, looks at ports the hand, and Jim being very careful thinking out what his play is going to be. 2 mana, down comes Mog War Marshal, okay.
There we go.
And now here's the daze from Flores. So Flores uses the daze the War Marshal. Ooh, I think I see a Dark Blast in Edgar's hand. Oh my, and that is a good card to have right here. So now I think he can safely just put down a second land, pass the turn, and in case something happens to his Stoneforge Mystic, he has the Dark Blast. Otherwise, he can just go end step, put equipment into play, untap, have Dark Blast available, and kill off that Lackey. That's going to be huge for Edgar Flores. Let's see what Jim Davis chooses to do. It seems like there's a lot of lands in his hand right now. He's a Scalding Tarn and a Taiga to start. Let's see. Alright, so there's Scalding Tarn.
Yep.
Okay, and now he's getting a land. And what do you think he's going to do this turn?
I didn't get a really good look at what his hand looks like right now. I see another Rishiden port. There's a Matron. This Matron is probably going to get a 10th Street Hooligan so that he can directly answer the Battle Skull once it comes down.
Let's see.
This puts him to 2 10th Street Hooligans after board. There are other possibilities, but 10th Street Hooligan seems the most likely, and there it is at the facing him.
So Jim's thinking about if it's going to work. I mean, the question, of course, with Hooligan is if Edgar leaves mana up, it's not as effective because you can just bounce the Batter Skull.
That's true.
Is that what he got?
He got the Hooligan.
I'm pretty sure he got the Hooligan. He's got a new card frame. Here, a few cards in the Goblins deck. Utilize the new card frame. So Edgar
Draw
draws.
from Edgar Flores, finding another daze.
Daze is going to be useful. If Jim goes for, say, a War Chief or something similar, put the daze to good use. Let's see what happens here. So now Edgar being the one to go into the tank, figure out what the correct line of play is here. And you're definitely attacking with Batter Skull. The question is, what else do you do?
Do you see another land in his hand?
No, I don't.
Attacks for 4.
That's a clear play. So Surface Ship Davis down to 14. Edgar Flores up to 23. Alright. And
down comes another Stoneforge Mystic.
Okay, so Stoneforge Mystic comes down and finds another Batter Skull. So he's going to be double timing Batter Skull here.
Yep, he's got his backup planned.
So it looks like Edgar does not have another land, so he couldn't have returned the Batter Skull. But Jim's going to be able to kill one Batter Skull, delaying the next one. So, I mean, not delaying, but... Oh, did you draw another 10th Street Hooligan?
He did draw another 10th Street
He's got
Hooligan.
both Hooligans for both Batter Skulls. That's perfect. So yeah, the next Batter Skull won't come down for, you know, end of Jim Davis's next turn, giving Jim some time to craft the plan. And that second 10th Street Hooligan
is that a
do a really good
wasteland?
job of dealing with it.
Oh, geez, a wasteland.
In second place, Eric English. In third place, Donnie Nolan. In fourth place, Richard Sperry. In fifth place, Michael Kirby. In sixth place, Ryan
Alright,
Spindler.
so
In seventh place,
let's see.
Matthew White.
Edgar just going to pass on his 2 lands, put that Batter Skull into play. We'll see what happens.
With the top 8 competitors in the second draft open,
Let's
please
see.
meet me in the draft area.
Just looking at Wasteland. Jim Davis looking at Wasteland at the front of his hand, I think. Trying to figure out what he's going to play. And let's see. Once again, carefully calculating things out. He knows how to play Goblins pretty well. And for him to do doing some calculations means that he's deep in the tank trying to figure out what to do. Let's see. Wasteland comes down for Jim Davis. And so Wasteland's away that underground C. So C goes away. Edgar might have a response, we'll see. He's going to put some kind of mana, no doubt. And then what'll happen is Jim will try and go to his next main phase, and he will activate his Stoneforge Mystic, putting Batterskull into play, and then Jim will have the opportunity to play a second 10th Street Hooligan and kill off that Batterskull. Also joining us in the booth are his fellow top 8 competitor Dan Jordan, along with Dave Shields.
That is correct.
Ooh, all right, close call. All right, so Dave Shields and Dan Jordan. So what we have here on Jim Davis' side of the board is 10th Street Hooligan, Goblin Matron, and Goblin Lackey versus Edgar Flores' double Stoneforge Mystic. One Batterskull is dead. Edgar has another Batterskull in his hand. Jim Davis has another Hooligan in his hands. Currently on the stack is a Wasteland on that underground C of Edgar Flores's. So it looks like Dark Blast.
Coming down on the
Lackey. Congratulations on the top 8, Dan.
Thanks. I got crushed. No one wanted to split, but hey, you know, some people just want to gamble.
So Goblin Lackey goes away. I mean, you were playing Zoo, or you're playing Merfolk, he was playing Zoo, so it's a pretty bad matchup for you.
Not quite gambling. Alright, he can.
So
How sick would it be if he dazed his own Dark Blast there to stop the Wasteland?
To bring the land back into his hand, that would be
I think that actually might have been a really good play.
And then now he wants to retain.
Does he have the days in his
Yeah,
hand?
he has a daze in his
he has
hand.
days in his hand, and Edgar's no more lands after that, so you might actually need to do that.
Yeah, like...
Do we know what else he has in his hand?
He's got a Batterskull and a Daze. I'm not sure what else. I think he has a Swords too.
Yeah, he's got his swords.
Will James
I thought it was enough time.
So Mike Jacob falls to Patrick Cox. So Patrick Cox advances to the finals. He'll play the winner of this match, Edgar Flores versus Jim Davis.
James Wolf and Sean Whitney.
Patrick Cox is really overdue, to be honest with you. He's got a lot of good finishes. He always plays you.
A lot of people picked Michael Jacob to win this tournament.
People like
too.
to
That's
target it.
impressive.
He said he hated his legacy deck this event though, playing the no rug deck.
I missed that.
Yeah. Edgar wasn't very happy at the top of his legacy either.
Yeah, Edgar would have been much happier had it would have been standard top 8. There's a judge ruling in progress. So what exactly is... I thought they were just in the tank. So what happened is Wasteland went on Underground C. They've been taking a long time. Hey, everyone, back with Gavin Verhey here with Dan Jordan, David Shields. So they've been taking a long time. Underground C was activated, or Wasteland activated on Underground C. Edgar thought for a while, Dark Blasted the Goblin Lackey, and then Jim Davis put the Lackey in the graveyard, and I think Edgar might be wanting to respond with the days. Is that, you think that's what's going on?
Right, yeah, I mean, it seems like the only thing he really can do there. I actually think it's perfectly fine, because if like he doesn't draw another land or a brainstorm, then like he can't put Batterskull in, and then the game just starts to favor. And then he has a Rashad port right now too, so like he can just start porting away. And
Right.
I don't remember if he's got another regular land. It's not a fetch land, I don't think.
I think Flooded Strand is landed in play. He has no more lands in his hand though.
Right, like he could theoretically like tap his Flooded Strand and then like waste the land when he goes to fetch. And it's just like I don't think Edgar's deck runs that many lands either. I think it's
22.
like 22. Yeah.
22.
And I think he's probably already fetched once. He's probably only got like 18 lands left, 19.
Yeah, legacy decks do not play very many lands in them.
No.
So
Those wasteland draws can be really rough.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, the play here then is he can pay 1 for the Dark Blast, still kill the Lackey, and
Oh, wow, I didn't even think about paying the 1.
yeah. So you
So
crack a
I
fetch
could
land, you
pay
pay the 1, and so the Lackey still dies. But what Jim Davis is arguing is the Goblin Lackey was put into the graveyard. He put the Lackey in the graveyard, which indicates that Dark Blast has resolved.
You
So there's some kind of dispute
and then I'll deal
between
with
the two
the time.
players.
Well, sometimes people play the Dark Blast and then like wait for a response, and it's like, no, you have to. You can't like do that and be like, oh no, I want to do something now. Like kind of when people play like Inferno Tutor off a Lion's Eye Diamond, and then they'd be like, look at someone, and they're like, all right, I'm gonna do. Okay, now I'm gonna discard my hand.
Right.
You can't do stuff.
You have priority first. You have to do it.
Right, exactly.
And if they pass without doing anything, then it resolves and nobody else gets a chance to do it.
Exactly.
It's just like nature. Like you're so used to doing it.
Right. You're like spelled, and then oh wait, I want to do my other thing, you know.
Right.
So this debate will be if Edgar gave Jim enough time to respond, or if Jim
I felt like
just
the amount of
been
time,
wacky,
he
then
didn't have time to gauge
there
my
wasn't enough
reaction,
time
see if I
to
missed
do
it or
the
not.
whole
And then he
catch
wanted
land
to
gaze.
But Jim is just always going to instantly ban all his creatures unless he has like a siege
Right.
dragon play or something.
He's not thinking about the possibility of him dazing it, right? You know,
Right.
it's not
I
on
also
his
don't know
mind.
how quickly Jim Davis does anything, so it's hard to say how quickly he did that.
He certainly quickly searched up two Goblin pile drivers in the last game.
So it was at least a couple of seconds.
Who do you guys think is favored in this matchup in general?
Is this game 2 right now?
This is game 2. Davis won the first game.
Okay.
This
is
I
really
want to say
clearly laid out in our
Jim, to be honest.
communication that if
especially
you
with
play
these
a
Mental
spell
Missteps
or
main
an
deck.
ability and you
Isn't
want to
that
retain
crazy that
priority,
main deck
you have
missteps in the
to
Goblin
stay
deck?
immediately, like as a part of
That's
playing
extremely
this
great.
other
He's
role.
the Goblins master.
Okay, so
though.
if
Yeah.
there's a
He's
significant pause
the best
after
Goblin
you
player
find
like, on
something,
the planet.
then you have passed priority
Like,
to it.
I mean, he's played it for
So I'm gonna
years,
overturn
and like
the
he's
judge's
got like
ruling and rule that
he's got like a
you
top
target
8
point when
finish.
it's
I think he has a
on
9th place with it, or a top
Okay,
16
and
or
you
something
pass
like
priority
that.
to your opponent.
And I'm sure he's won a PTQ or two along the way. He's like really insane in this deck.
He basically plays
In our
Goblins
common rules that you
any format
intrinsically
where
pass
it's
priority.
legal.
Was it him or David Sharfman that won with Goblins last year?
One
Play
what
on,
was
guys.
it?
An
It was,
open
I
series.
can't- Oh, it was Sharfman. It was
Oh, Sharfman, okay.
Yeah.
Sharfman also a very prominent Goblins player, knows how to play his Goblins well. But Jim Davis certainly the master of the archetype, I would say.
Yeah, I think it has to favor the Goblin deck for sure.
Yeah, I
mean,
agree.
obviously, Batterskull's a problem for the Goblin deck. They don't really have that many ways to deal with it, but like,
Okay, so it looks like the Underground Sea is in the graveyard.
Oh wow.
So
Wait, I do see a daze there though, in the graveyard.
I think I'm not sure exactly what happened, but the Underground Sea is definitely in the graveyard. So the Wasteland resolved on the Underground Sea. That happened for sure. I think
Edgar's hand is definitely. I saw a Daze in the Swords to Plowshares.
and Dark Confidant
Dark
sitting there
Confidant
too.
and Batterskull, and then he's got one more card.
Yeah, but no more lands, which is a big problem. And even if he manages to land that Batterskull, Jim Davis has drawn his second 10th Street Hooligan to deal with it.
He has 2 10th Street Hooligans?
Yeah, one in his sideboard.
That is a sick. He matroned for one, probably, right?
He matroned for one and then drew
Okay.
the other the next turn, yeah.
Oh, he drew it after he made it
Yeah.
for it? Oh, wow.
Alright, so he ports down Flooded Strand, forcing Edgar Flores to crack his land in his upkeep. Who do you guys think Patrick Cox wants to see win this one?
Well, Pat Sullivan got crushed by Goblins, so he says. So I mean, I would assume you'd want the blue-white-black deck to win because like, if you don't draw like 3 swords, like you probably just have no shot.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, or like unless he goes like Home Lion without like not off a Savannah and you like Dark Blast it. So.
I definitely think that the Zoo deck is favored versus the Goblin deck, without question.
Yeah, I thought that too, but then.
Oh, no, sorry. I said that backwards.
Okay.
The Goblin deck is favored. I talked to Patrick after he lost, and he said he kept a hand that was basically as good as he could expect and still didn't feel like he ever had a chance.
Yeah, and the Goblins deck is so good at clogging up the board. I mean, you just put out like a Mog War Marshal or two, and it's pretty insane. So Edgar searches up a scrubland in his upkeep after getting ported. See if he draws another land here.
An interesting choice considering the days in his hand.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd ever search up Scrubland there because like then you just can't draw Brainstorm.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, like and like you just say, is a daze. Like there's a good chance Jim right now just has ringleaders, like just out the yin yang, like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Because I think he missed a land drop.
He draws Aether Vial. Yeah, I agree. I think you want to get the blue source. I understand in Edgar's head he's like, well, I want to cast Confidant, I want to be able to cast Swords, but having the blue seems pretty important, especially if you're getting ported every turn. Like you want to be able to have a land that you can do things with even while it's being tapped, like Daze. So Jim serves with that 10th Street Hooligan.
Yeah, I like Jim's play here. I don't think you need to put a ringleader down. Like you have no clock on. You just keep porting his land, play the vial here, and just shit.
Yep, I like that too. I mean, once again, you just lock Edgar down on his mana. He clearly has no more lands. He's not going to have any lands basically if you're porting him down every turn. So you're just going to end up way ahead.
You like look at that there, like because he didn't get a blue source, now he has to take 2 damage, and that could be like he's so huge.
Yeah, do you think you get Underground Sea there or Tundra? Probably Tundra, right? He has
Tundra
swords.
because he has swords. And
Yeah, he has the swords. Edgar's deck, too, is really just a black-white deck. The only blue cards that he has are Daze, Mental Misstep, which isn't really blue, and then Brainstorm. So that might be the reason he didn't get the blue source, because there really is, Brainstorm is the only out that makes getting the island right, but I definitely think I would have gotten a Tundra to keep that Daze live.
Yeah.
I agree.
Does he not have Jace in his deck?
He has 2 Jaces.
Oh, he has 2 Jace?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 2 Jaces main deck and then some V-Clicks after sideboarding, Spell Pierce also, but not for this matchup.
Yeah, I don't think the Jaces will still be in his deck after sideboard.
Agreed.
But with Edgar, you're never really sure.
Yeah, I mean, you play a Jace, you bounce a Matrid.
Bounce a Ringleader, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't do that one.
Like, you can't even bounce a Goblin Pile Driver.
Yeah, no, you can't bounce their best goblin.
So, Jim Davis considering his options now. He's way ahead, he just wants to make sure it stays that way. After Edgar Flores lays a second land.
The Marsh Flats was definitely as good as it gets for a draw phase.
So I'm pretty confused here. Like, I think I would just play the Ringleader here. Because now you can't port him, because he'll just put in Batter Skull.
Right.
So, I don't know.
I mean, he can still Ringleader him.
No, that's the second Batter Skull you said, right?
Yeah, he's second Batter Skull.
Does Jim know about the second Batter Skull, or...?
Jim knows about the second Batter Skull. Edgar doesn't know about the second 10 straight Hooligan, though. So,
Okay.
so what he's going to do is
yeah.
he's going to trick him into putting the second Batter Skull in his upkeep, and then pass the turn. Jim's going to go untap, 10 straight Hooligan, your Batter Skull.
You know,
Yeah. So
You're,
look
no,
at
you're
this.
right. You're right.
Look at this. He didn't leave the port untapped, which might be a tell to Edgar that...
Oh, no, actually, he's porting on his upkeep now. It's
Oh,
Edgar's
he is?
upkeep,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, so he's porting it.
Alright.
Yeah,
Floating.
Edgar's floating. I think he's stone forging right now.
And Edgar's just
He
like,
has to get Underground Seed here. Yeah.
and I'm sure he's like, well, I have to do this. What are the odds he drew his other Hooligan, right?
Yeah.
And gonna get awkward for Edgar here in a
Because
second.
they did get deck lists in the top 8, so
Yeah.
he does know he has 2 in his deck.
Right. So there's the Batter Skull, but that skull is not long for this world. And Edgar gets a draw step to see if he finds a land. That doesn't look like
I think
it.
it's a Path to Exile.
Yeah. It's got a... I think is that 4 paths in the sideboard? 4.
It's either 4
Yeah,
or 1.
Yeah, it's 4.
It's
For his
4.
sake, I hope it's 4.
It's 4. Alright. So there's the Hooligan. Jim Davis cannot slam that down fast enough. And that'll kill off the Batter Skull.
The look on Edgar's
I would
face
love
here
to
must
see
be
Edgar's face right
perfect.
now.
Yeah. Edgar clearly not happy about
Will
the
the players
situation.
for standard win box number 7, standard win box
Jim still
number
doesn't have a
7,
dominating board
please come to
position,
the event
but he's got
stage.
everything he needs.
Your event is
It
ready.
doesn't look dominating, but, you know.
It is.
They know he's ahead.
Yeah.
Like,
Without any Batter Skulls left in his decks, there isn't really a clear path to victory for Edgar. Like, against an aggro deck, you know, Dark Confidant's not a path. So his only creatures are Dark Confidants and Stoneforge Mystics, so he really only has...
Yeah.
and, like, cards like Swords of Posters and Path, like, they're fine, but, like, you don't get anywhere pathing and swordsing cards that are just getting you constant card advantage.
Yeah, the trading 1-for-1s isn't going to get you anywhere against the Goblin deck.
Right.
It's great against a deck like Zoo that just only has creatures that are 1-for-1s, but against a deck like Goblins that can generate card advantage off all its creatures, you're not getting anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you guys are right. Edgar has very few routes to victory. He's got Bitter Blossoms left. He's got Mystics that can't really find too much, maybe a sword, and Dark Confidant. So even if Edgar was able to manage to get back in the game, he doesn't have a lot of good options.
I would be surprised to even see the sword be still in his deck after he boarded in the second Batter Skull.
I would be very impressed if Edgar won right now. Wow, he dredged and he was going to draw a land too. Like, that just always feels the worst.
Yeah, when
So-
you dredge and the card you want is on top.
Exactly.
So he dredges Dark Blast. And
Skirk Prospector.
Skirk Prospector comes down. So now Edgar has access to a Dark Blast to kill off the Hooligan, probably. But it's still, that's all Edgar's able to do. Doesn't have any other options.
You don't need to do it right now. I mean, like, especially since if he plays a Ringleader, then he can't even really attack.
Right.
Because he'll just Dark Blast it.
Right. I mean, yeah, you wait. But Edgar's just so low on options when all he can do is dredge a Dark Blast when he's stuck on 2 lands. It's a rough spot for Edgar Flores.
What happened game 1? I mean, just Jim just destroy him.
No, not at all. Edgar looked like he had a reasonable board state, and then eventually Jim just managed to gain a long game advantage, got a lot of goblins onto the battlefield.
Wow, he drew another
He drew
Ringleader.
another Ringleader.
Oh man.
That's really bad.
Colin Mowry, Sarah Menard, and
Yeah,
David
here we go.
Ryan.
Ringleader time.
Come to the event stage
I think he's
for
going to stop
standard
porting
win
and
box.
start ringleadering.
Oh wow, he's even going to be able to Rashad him board too because of the Skirk Prospector.
Oh wow,
That is
yeah.
ridiculous.
That is pretty cute. Yeah, you can just sacrifice the Matron and Prospector Edgar Flores. So let's see what top 4 cards we have. Land.
Wow.
whiffs on the Goblin Ringleader, but he has another Ringleader in his hand, so...
And the sick part is that Ringleader just has a 2/2 haste is still really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4 mana 2/2 haste. Pretty sweet card. So Edgar blocks and Dark Blasts. Or no, he just Dark Blasts the Hooligan, sorry.
Right.
Yeah, so he's taking 2.
Isn't it better to block the Ringleader and Dark Blast the Ringleader in this case?
Well, we blasted the Hooligan on his own turn, so that way that Prospector can...
Oh, sure. Oh, sorry. Sure.
I think it is because it doesn't force you to dredge or anything like that. Like,
Yeah. If you know he has the Ringleader, maybe, but...
what's the point? Like, you can wait. I mean, he's not going to counter a Dark Blast anyhow. I mean, you're scared of really that scared of a Mental Misstep on your Dark Blast?
Yeah, I guess it maybe is more the mana that you can generate off Prospector on your own turn.
Right.
Alright, so Edgar's gonna Swords away that Goblin Ringleader, giving Jim 2 life. And
Does Edgar keep in his Force of Wills? I mean, does he even play Force of Wills?
Edgar doesn't
No,
play
he
Force
doesn't
of
play
Will.
Force
Does not play
That's one of the big
Forces
things.
for days.
Yeah, he said, we talked to him earlier, and he said he thinks Force of Will just isn't good anymore. So
Yeah. And if you just don't play against any of the unfair decks, like the combo decks, then
Right.
you know it ends up being great. And you still have Daze, and Daze is a card that has kind of been under the radar a little bit. And I know it's been great for Edgar all weekend,
yeah.
but mostly because it's caught his opponents off guard. So once they saw it, it's not quite as good.
Yeah, there's not a lot of combo around. So Edgar dredges Dark Blast again, serves, kills the Skirk Prospector, serves with Stoneforge Mystic. Now Jim still has that Ringleader. That's his last card, and he needs to hit some Goblins off of it. So he moves Vile up to 3, draws.
Looks like Pile Driver.
Yeah, it looks like Pile Driver. Now we were talking about him maybe sideboarding out some of those Pile Drivers potentially.
Hopefully this one doesn't miss.
It's kind of
But-
obsolete.
All right, 1, 2, 3 Goblins. Now that's
2
the
Incinerators and a War Chief, and that should just about do it.
yeah. That's what.
Oh wow, he gets to put in War Chief, and then he might not play the Pile Driver, but like, I think I would.
Oh yeah, I definitely play the Pile
You know,
Driver.
if he's got days. That's just life.
And Edgar does have the Daze, so that this Pile Driver should just get dazed here.
See what happens. Oh, he doesn't
Oh
daze
wow,
it.
maybe he doesn't have
Does
the
he-
Daze. Does he not have it?
Does he not? He has.
He
days?
does have a Daze in his hand. I don't know why he didn't do it.
Like,
Wow, I'm pretty surprised by that play. Because I mean that Pile
I mean,
Driver.
there it is,
He
right
just
there.
has to not be thinking clearly. Like,
I
there's
mean-
no way you can. I mean, like, what's he holding the Daze for? There's nothing in Jim's deck that you really need to wait for.
if he dazes there, there's a good chance he could still be in this game. Like 5 more life.
Yeah, 5 more life. Maybe he drew his land this turn, and while Jim Davis was tapped out. I mean, he's still not in a good position, but
Yeah, and he has no more ways in his deck to gain life, right? Like both of his batter skills are gone, so.
he can swords himself if he has to. But other
Yeah,
than
but
that,
his creatures don't have that much toughness or power, sorry, and
Right.
Bitter Blossom is basically a dead card now at this point too, so there's not really any, other than attacking with Stoneforge Mystics, there is not really a way Edgar can win this game.
let's see what Jim Davis decides to do. He organizes his lands. Cycles Incinerator. Kills Dark Confidant. Okay. So Confidant goes down. Jim picks up a new card. Draws another Incinerator.
Incinerator.
Man.
Wow, so.
Oh well, now it's just over.
All but
he just
over,
puts
yeah.
in the Gem Palm Incinerator after either vial and kills his other guy.
Yeah, and Edgar will have the removal spell for the Pile Driver to
Right.
go to 1.
And then
but-
he'll take because he'll take 6 because the Incinerator has haste.
Oh, if he decides to cast the Incinerator.
Well,
yeah,
he's gonna
you're
cast it
right.
off the either vial.
Yep.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, that's it. Puts in a War Chief. And that's it. So
that's
Jim
that.
Davis advances to the finals, where he will face Patrick Cox. He already defeated one Zoo deck today. Can he defeat another? We're going to find out.